Welcome to Arborjet headquarters. We're pleased to have you here for our live event, Advancing the Science of Plant Healthcare through Innovation. As you gear up for summer and another productive season, we're excited to take you behind the scenes and show you the different products and tools we have to help you be effective and profitable. So let's get started.
At Arborjet Ecology, we are strong believers in being good stewards of our industry and the environment. Together with our distributors, service providers, and membership organizations, we are proud to have been part of the treatment of millions of trees while providing education and support to the industry. We machine parts locally and assemble them right here in Boston, and we have the best and broadest distributor network in the industry. This assures you get the highest quality products where you need them and when you need them. Our team of educated, licensed, and trained plant health experts assure you get the most qualified and professional assistance possible.
Today, we'll introduce you to some of our industry-leading equipment and formulations. We think you'll find them very effective and profitable in the field. The basis of our success is the Arbor Plug, which we do recommend for the safest, most effective, and efficient treatment of trees. That, along with the QuickJet Air and our most advanced, lowest dose Triage R10, will help you get the job done quickly and profitably, and you'll see them all in action very soon.
We're constantly working to improve and design new and better equipment to make your field work easier and more efficient. Through the use of 3D printing and scanning conducted right here at our headquarters, we design and engineer our own premier equipment. From devices that deliver precise amounts of formulation to ergonomic soil excavating equipment, we look forward to demonstrating the ways you can efficiently use these tools.
Our unique formulations are designed to cover nearly any problem you may encounter, from tree and plant health care to soil enhancement or water management. Today, we'll show you the results of our plant growth regulator and why you should consider it for a labor-saving treatment on a wide variety of trees and shrubs. You'll also learn about our versatile soil enhancement product line and see why improving soil health is a much more sustainable option in an uncertain fertilizer market.
We have a lot to cover, but by the end of this session, you'll see all the ways Arborjet Ecology can help you be a more effective plant healthcare provider. So get ready to learn and enjoy the experience.
There are lots of reasons for the various types of tree services, general tree care, plant health care, but I've always found that plant health care provides our customers and our employees with an opportunity to preserve trees rather than having to replant after removal. PHC, plant health care, is actually a way to be a tree physician instead of a tree mortician. I like that a lot because I like the notion of having a customer for life instead of having a customer for one quick visit. So one of the things that I would encourage people to consider is not only is it a good thing for the environment and a good thing for our customers, but also a way to make great profit. It's generally one of the most profitable means by which you can work in the tree care industry. So that brings me to the various ways one can treat trees. There have been treatments going on for years, and everything from sprays to soil drenching to bark sprays to what would be considered the newest form of treatment, and that's tree injection. And I want to focus today on tree injection. It's something that we specialize in. And so one has to ask oneself, why are we injecting trees? People are curious, does it hurt the tree? The answer is generally no, it doesn't hurt the tree. But importantly, it allows us to do several things that most other methods don't. First thing it does is it moves the product rapidly to the target pest or disease. So you can very quickly get control of the things that are attacking the tree. Injection uses the tree's vascular tissue. It uses its own network to move product from the place where you insert it up into the tree to protect the entire tree. Another real benefit, especially in today's world, is the notion of safety. And when I talk about safety, I'm talking about environmental safety, environmental responsibility. We're using a very limited dose of product. We're putting it into the tree directly. We're limiting exposure to the soil, the water, and the air. There's nothing in any of those. Additionally, you're using a smaller dose. You're able to protect the tree without having to go off target. Many other options including soil drenching and bark sprays, as well as spraying the leaves, limits you in terms of your ability to control the off-target experience. Additionally, when one looks at the way that we are perceived in the marketplace, it's considered a more professional approach when you're able to inject a tree and deliver the same results that normally people would expect of sprays. In the springtime, as we're in right now, one of the things that is particularly, I think, important is that we typically have high winds in the springtime. It's very common. Often the leaves are too small, and many insects are coming out that need to be controlled. It's difficult to get good timing when you've got winds that exceed the allowable spray time in terms of wind speed, and rain is a very common problem. Additionally, I think that soil drenching has become less favorable because people don't like the notion of placing chemistry in the soil if we can avoid it. So this is a question that came up quite a while ago that I attempted to address earlier. What are the qualifications for a PHC employee? And honestly, it's a little different than one might expect, because no one comes out of school, no one is prepared to be able to figure out everything that's wrong on a landscape. It really is an important diagnostic process, but no one has 10 or 15 years to teach someone how to do all of that. Additionally, the same person that has to understand plant health care and what's going wrong on a landscape also has to be able to communicate with customers. It's not enough for them to simply know the science. They also need to be able to communicate that in a manner that is more simplified for the end customer, to help them understand what is happening and what they need to do. So my experience has been that you don't seek someone who is already trained in all of these things, because they're simply impossible to find. But you seek someone who has interest in the landscape and what's going on, and then you teach them about the most important issues in the marketplace where they are. So you focus on, a couple of key pests, 3 or 4 pests, maybe a disease, and then they get good at that, and you market those skills, and then you begin to expand their knowledge slowly. It's never going to be an all or nothing. In fact, diagnosing a landscape is the most difficult thing that most of us have to deal with, because you have to look at all of the criteria. What are the cultural conditions? What are the abiotic, which means there are no pests present issues? All of that has to be addressed. And so again, that is a learning process that no one has the time to teach, because everyone's working rather lean these days. Well, before we even introduce a product into the marketplace, it goes through extensive research, and that's equipment and chemistry. We have to validate that it works. We have to validate how it works, how long it lasts. In the environment, many of the products that are sprayed on the leaves have a very short life cycle because the sun breaks them down. Likewise, products that are put into the soil also are decomposed by the soil microorganisms. And so when we look at injection, what its main focus is to get the product to the pest in a most efficient manner and keep it there out of the sunlight and with no microorganisms breaking it down. So what you're seeing when you inject a tree is the most direct means by which to protect the tree internally. It allows us to treat for borers, which are one of the most important tree killers in the marketplace. And those could be borers for hardwoods, borers for conifers, varies from pines to ash trees. We're able to get that product in and start killing those pests from the inside very quickly. So there have been people early on that were concerned about the effect of drilling into trees. But one of the things that I like to think about is there have been boring insects around for literally millennia. And the trees have a way of managing to fight off boring insects, specifically those that evolved with those trees in a given country or a continent. And so when we think about drilling into a tree, it's very much as if a borer was drilling into the tree. If the trees were unable to protect themselves from borers, native borers, those trees would not be here today. They would have died off long ago. And so the fact that trees have evolved a means by which to contain and control the impact of borers, which they generally have, means that drilling into the tree is not a harmful fact. In fact, a recent study that was done with the ISA demonstrated that there was no sign of damage and disease or decay in the trees that were in fact drilled into. And we checked this over multiple years, and this was a study done as well with Michigan State University as well. And so one of the things that we've added to our equation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, is the use of a plug. We use a thing called an arbor plug that we developed. And that arbor plug, in fact, I've got some handy here that I can demonstrate with. And these arbor plugs are designed to be tapped into the tree when we drill into the tree. They have a one-way septum, a rubber septum in the center. And we insert our needle through that rubber septum. When we extract the needle, all the material stays in the tree. Additionally, it forms a surface upon which the new growth of the tree's xylem will close over. So typically, within a year, we've got complete close over of that site, and often there's bark installed on top of that, and that plug hastens the process so nothing else gets into the tree. No disease organisms, no accidental insects either. You know, preservation has always been important to many of us. In fact, early on in my career in tree care, I treated properties and tried to save landscapes, and inevitably those properties who had been a new house built on them in the last 10 years, any mature trees that had been left on the property were in the process of declining or dying because construction damage, changing the grade, all of that, crushing roots, it all cause these trees to decline. Everyone likes trees on their landscape. They're valuable, they improve the quality of life for people. However, in recent years, people have begun to understand that climate change is a real fact and that trees are one of the solutions around climate change. And so I think the notion of preservation has increased in its popularity. And I also think that with the wide dispersal of information on the internet, people are more rapidly learning how valuable trees are to them. The other piece that's really, I think, triggered some of that is that we've had multiple years and types of insects come in and kill large-scale trees. Initially, people remember Dutch elm disease, taking out all of the street trees in many communities where elms were planted. Maples were planted in some areas after that, and ash were planted all over the Midwest. Tens of thousands of ash on any given city. And now those are all dying because of emerald ash borer. I think people realize how important it is to preserve these trees because it reflects a quality of life for the citizens and residents of those cities. So for years people have wondered whether they should apply some type of a media over the top of a pruning cut. And most of the science supports the notion that if you do your pruning properly, which means leaving the branch collar, that the tree will naturally close over, that the xylem will grow, that there will be a movement of that xylem over the top of the branch collar, closing off that site much more quickly. It's one of the concepts that brought us to the notion that we wanted to use plugs after we set an injection site, after we drilled a hole. We firmly believe that plugs are the best way to approach that. And again, it's keeping in with the science of how a tree tends to close over a branch that has died or has been cut off. And so by using a pruning message and explaining to our customers, we've been able to adopt a whole method of treating trees that we think is more sensible. by using these plugs, which seal or grip into the wood of the tree, not the bark, the tree is then able to close over more rapidly and seal that with some additional bark, typically within a year, as I mentioned previously. However, there's some other benefits to the applicator that I really like. Many times we're treating in high-profile areas on city streets or where large numbers of people exist. And so when you use a plug, it keeps all of the product in the tree. There's nothing that escapes from the tree. There's no leaking. That means no kids or dogs or pets are at risk by exposure or by curiosity. It tends to also assure that you can use a higher pressure for trees that require more pressure to move the product into a tree. When you use no plug, it is difficult to get enough pressure because you worry about material flowing back out. So as an applicator, I want to make sure that when I'm making an application that I minimize the risk to myself. Yes, there's the need to wear PPE, but additionally, the last thing we want is for product to come back out of the injection site, and plugs prevent that from happening. Common sense dictates that you're careful with pesticides, insecticides, fungicides. Some are of greater risk to humans, some are of lower risk to humans. The key is anything is more reasonable to use if you're using common sense. Keeping your eyes protected, wearing gloves, wearing long shirts and pants. These are all common things that any applicator would know and should use. However, there are products that are easier to use and more environmentally sound, and injecting products as compared to spraying them minimizes the impact. I do want to mention another factor relating to that, however. When we think about spraying insects, we think about caterpillars, and there are many different types. In fact, a presentation that I just conducted listed 15 caterpillars from all over the country that are damaging caterpillars. But it's very difficult in the spring to get your timing right to spray these caterpillars because the leaves are very small, and I mentioned the wind and the rain earlier. And as a result of that, it's difficult to get good control and good timing and get there before the pests cause damage. With injection, there are many products that you can use and inject in the fall that will be there in the spring, so you don't have to be there at the exact right moment in the spring to protect those trees. I really like that as an applicator because it gives me a broader window of opportunity to protect the trees. When you're thinking about general tree care, there's a huge startup cost. You've got anything from grapplers, you've got chippers, you've got the ability to contain all the wood chips, you've got the ability to climb trees or to reach the trees with equipment. All of that is very expensive. When you think about PHC, in the old days we used to buy big 1,000-gallon tankers with multiple pumps because we sprayed everything. We had to spray the tops of 70 and 80-foot trees. That concept is gone, largely unacceptable, off target, and undesirable by the public. In the old days, when I sprayed trees for a living, people ran in their houses, closed their windows, and waited till everything dried before they came out. In today's world, you can get into PHC with either a small tank or with spray equipment that is battery operated or injectable products. No longer do we need massive expenditures, and the profit margins on plant health care are always considerably higher than general tree care because it's just a very expensive process to remove trees. PHC sustains the tree and keeps the customer happy and satisfied, and keeps the customer for life as compared to a one-time tree removal. In order to be a good PHC salesman, one has to understand all of the various problems that exist on a landscape. But as I've mentioned previously, it's very difficult to train someone on all of that in a very short order. It takes time. I've been working in the industry for 40 years myself, and I'm still learning new problems all the time. So it's difficult enough to find someone who can sell general tree care effectively. It adds more complexity when you have to sell plant health care. I think it's possible to do both. I just think it's a more difficult challenge. And in today's tough labor market, it's increasingly more difficult to find people who will do that work for you and stay with you for the long term. The beauty of plant health care is that you can set people up on a program where you're coming to the property to maintain fertility or provide nutrients or supplements to the soil, to deal with any pests that are present today or may show up down the road. And it gives you a consistent amount of revenue stream coming in all the time. Whereas tree jobs, unless you've got a serious weather crisis, are less consistent, and you're always looking for that next job. Every job that you complete means you have to look for the next job. And so with PHC, you're able to maintain a business model that consistently treats trees on a daily basis that you can predictably budget for with people and resources. So what we'd like to do now is demonstrate how to inject a tree properly. We think that there are lots of simple mistakes that can be avoided if we do this correctly. Kevin's with me today, just like he was earlier on some of the equipment we have talked about. So let's start by identifying where in the tree we would like to inject. We've already identified the fact that this tree is going to require 8 injection sites. So Kevin's going to choose a spot low on the tree in the bottom 8 to 10 inches or so. In this case, it looks like we have a grafted tree, so he's going to inject slightly above that. And he'll place his drill where he needs to at a perpendicular place against the bark of the tree. When Kevin starts the drilling process, he's going to let the drill bit take itself through the bark, which is very soft and easy to do, and he's just going to let it go through that far first. You can see the beginning of white showing, and the white is the xylem of the tree, so he's just started to tap into the white xylem of the tree. Depending upon the tree that we're going to inject, in this case it's an ash, that will dictate how deep of an injection site we will create. Generally speaking, in hardwoods, we want somewhere between 1 inch and 1.5 inches to no more than 2 inches. And in conifers, perhaps 2 inches is the correct depth because the vascular tissue is much smaller and we want opportunity for good uptake. So Kevin's next going to drill to the proper depth. When you've had plenty of experience, this is sort of second nature to you, but if you need to initially measure it, that can be done as well. Kevin, go ahead. You'll notice that when he did the drilling on this site, he went in quickly and went out quickly. That's to avoid high-speed drilling and therefore prevent cauterization of the tissue. We want that tissue as loose and open as possible. So now he's ready to insert the plug. Kevin's going to put a plug in next and just place it in the tree, and then we'll tap it in. Okay, Kevin's going to put the plug into the tree, just set it there, and then we're going to use a plug setter to tap it into the correct depth. Perhaps you were able to hear the change in tone of the hammer tapping it in, but the most important part that I want to stress here is that we want that plug set so that a little bit of the xylem is visible above the top of the plug. So Kevin has set the plug to the correct depth. We've set it that way so that next year as the xylem grows, the plug will be closed over and completely encapsulated in the tree. And by the next time that we inject this tree, we won't even know that this plug exists. So the next thing that Kevin's going to do is he's already calculated the dose he needs for this tree. He's going to use the quick jet air, and he's going to inject through the rubber septum into the tree. Let's watch him do that now. And just like that, he's done. In this case, Kevin is using a 10% formula, which is going to deliver a very nice treatment with only a minimal dose of 4 mils. And that injection site is done, and it's time to move on to the next injection site. So what we're doing with this tree, these are all ash trees. This happens to be a 16-inch ash, and this entire street is under attack from emerald ash borer. I've asked Kevin to inject this tree with 2 different products. One is a 4% and one is a 10% emamectin benzoate. He's setting all the plugs now, and what we're going to do is we're going to inject every other hole with one or the other product. And then by multiplying by 2, we'll know how long it would take to do each one, where the only measurement, the only variable, is how much time it takes to get the fluid into the tree and up into the tree to protect it. So stay tuned, we'll be back to you in just a moment. Okay, so Kevin just injected the 10% formulation into this tree in 4 injection sites in 25 seconds. That means if he were doing all injection sites with this 10% formulation, we'd be looking at 50 seconds to do that entire group of that entire tree with the 10% formulation. Next, we'll try the 4% formulation and see how long that takes. A little bit of air in, but okay, Kevin's just completed the injection of the 4 injection sites with a 4% formulation. And if we add that times 2, that comes out to 2.5 minutes versus 50 seconds for the 4% based on the entire tree being treated. We've just completed a trial here on a 16-inch tree that's already under attack by emerald ash borer, although it's in reasonably good shape. Every other hole we injected a 4% emamectin benzoate, and on the other holes we injected with a 10% emamectin benzoate called Triage. Triage R10 to be precise. And what we found, even on this one tree, as we've seen in so many other trees, is a remarkable difference in the speed of uptake of the 10% versus the 4%. In fact, we were able to complete the 10% injections 66% faster than the 4%. And there are two main reasons for that. One is it's a different formulation, it has a lower viscosity, and you're only putting in 40% of the dose of a 4% product. So when you look at 66% savings in time, that's an enormous time savings if you're looking to reduce your labor costs, or the ability to make increasingly more money simply by treating the trees faster. It's a pretty remarkable achievement. 4% and 10%, the major differences are the viscosity and the concentration. You can use either product to protect trees against some of these serious pests. However, if you've got the choice between a 4% that's slower and a 10% that is 66% faster, what would you choose?
All right, we're here at the Arborjet outdoor demonstration area. We're going to be going through the AccuFlow ISD soil injector in the 4-gallon and the 9-gallon options. Either way you go, it's a great tool with a lot of versatility and uses, from plant growth regulators, systemic insecticides, or fertilization. You know, you're going to find you can get a really repeatable, accurate, efficient dose with it. They're both battery operated, so they're very quiet, unintrusive in neighborhoods, very green footprint, carbon friendly. And another nice thing about this piece of equipment is either of the options, the 4 or the 9-gallon, have 5 pressure selections between 20 and 100 psi, which gives a lot of versatility whether you're trying to do a bark drench, a foliar spray, or a soil injection. When going with the soil injection option, the soil injector has a return line which goes back into the unit itself, which keeps all your product in solution. So you don't have to worry about your growth regulators falling out of solution like they typically would. It keeps everything nice, well, and agitated. So the benefits about the 9-gallon tow-behind tank is 9 gallons is a pretty good volume to have. It's easy to move around the backyard. It's not too heavy, but it has a 20-foot hose attached to it. So you can kind of leave that centrally located and get into more tighter areas, like if there's a sensitive perennial bed or more formal type gardens where you wouldn't want to drag a traditional type half-inch diameter heavy hose off a truck through that kind of garden. It's a much lighter touch to be able to get the job done with less damage to the surrounding area, a little more care. The 4-gallon has the benefit of just having that on your back, so if you're going through a stepped garden or moving over things, it's just very easy to move around. I like it a lot for moving through a job quickly. You're just kind of taking it with you. You don't have to worry about the hose tangling up. But again, a benefit of the 9-gallon is if you have to get under a low branching tree, you may not want a backpack of product on you. So in that case, the lower branching tree might be better with a 9-gallon tank. AccuFlow soil injector, not only is it efficient, accurate, repeatable dosing, but it's also very intuitive and easy to use. It has an adjustable injection volume from 10 to 300 milliliters, adjustable in 10 milliliter increments simply by sliding the collar up or down the adjustment slide. And on the back, it just has a simple fill or inject handle. So again, it's extremely intuitive use, easy to use, lightweight at only 11 pounds. And again, with the battery-powered backpack, you get a really good longevity out of these batteries. In the spray application, which you can do soil injections, foliar sprays, or bark drenches with it, you can spray about 75 gallons out on one battery, so it really does get you a long way. When you hook up the soil injector, one of the benefits of it is it has a return line, which goes back to the tank, so when you're filling the cylinder for the injection, it's recirculating into the backpack to make sure all your plant growth regulators would stay in solution. And when you hook up that return line, it's simple to do when you want to use the soil injector. It's just a quick connect right on the side of the tank. It self-seals as soon as you take it out if you want to use it in a spray application or for the soil injection. you simply pop the return line right back in. Again, with the 20-gallon, it's the same exact way. It has 2 hoses if you want to use it for the soil injector, 1 return line, 1 pressure line. And again, same easy quick connect for nice easy use. So we've got a newly installed river birch here, and we're going to be using our NutriRoot product, which is in an ultra low volume soil conditioner fashion. Perfect application for the AccuFlow ISD. We've got it set to 200 milliliters per injection, so we're just going to let that fill right up. And then we're just going to give it 4 injection sites around the root ball. And you'll see it's quite fast and efficient. And when you're using soil conditioners, you're not worried so much about that high volume. We're just using, things that are trying to just, help this tree establish. But again, it's, by the time you get to the next site, it's pretty much already filled back up, ready to go. Very fast, efficient, quiet piece of equipment. That's it, 1 tree done. Maintaining healthy soils is an important part to any plant healthcare program. With the ArborRx program, we've designed it to be able to tailor specifically to site needs or for just general maintenance. So spring and fall fertilizations or soil management applications are great subscription services to make sure your plant healthcare services remain profitable. With the AccuFlow soil injector, we have a great mix of products in the ArborRx program, from humic acids, humectants, humates, seaweed extracts, iron, and NPK type fertilizers. So any site, whatever the needs may be, whether you're using a molasses-based product like BioMP to feed the microbes so that they can feed the soil to feed the tree, you're going to be able to get that done efficiently and effectively with the ISD products. The ArborRx program is designed around mimicking what trees want, and that's a natural soil structure. So when we have things like new installations in soils that are more sandy and lacking of organic matter, we can put down mulch, but the effects of mulch would take time for that product to biodegrade and get that carbon source into the soil. So by adding things like BioMP, which is a molasses-based soil conditioner, we can increase microbial activity and speed up the ability for the soil to decompose that mulch and get that organic matter available. And until that process happens, we can add things like Enviroplex, which is a humic acid, and what that does is it increases the cation exchange capacity of the soil so it can retain more water and nutrients and have them available for the tree when needed. New establishment is also necessary to promote new root growth. And something we've known for a long time in this industry is that cytokinins from seaweed extracts are very beneficial in that manner. So in new plantings, something like NutriRoot has most of those products already involved in it in one ready-to-go container. At the time of installation, it really does just help ensure the success of your business and your client's property. All right, we're talking about Shortstop 2SE, our plant growth regulator. There's many benefits to plant growth regulators, from the growth regulation itself and the benefits you get from being able to maintain the size of a plant through regulation, or the health benefits you can get through growth regulation by having a tree better able to maintain its own moisture, more ability to fight off drought stress, and a thicker leaf cuticle to stave off disease and other fungal pathogens. So here we've got an example of where we used it as a foliar application. The lilac behind me, we applied it as a foliar last season, and you can see the growth is much more regulated, which would save you a lot of time and energy in pruning and maintenance on that property, versus an unregulated plant, which has, you can see, much more growth. Other benefits to it are, a lot of times we have to prune, boxwoods or privet hedges all the time, and the more material we're removing from a plant, the more energy it's wasting to try to regrow that. So when we can make it so we only have to prune a plant, say, once or twice a season, rather than 3 or 4 in some cases of highly maintained hedges, you're gonna have a much healthier plant, which in turn, a healthier plant is always gonna have more disease and insect resistance and drought tolerance. Some of the many reasons you might use a plant growth regulator on a tree may be beyond what you might imagine. Typically, we've always thought of it just for their growth regulation benefits, but now we're seeing great benefit in situations where you've had a lot of root damage to a tree, such as construction damage, or compacted soils in an urban environment that you've recently possibly amended. By putting down a plant growth regulator, you're allowing the plant to redistribute its energy and reserves from outward growth to repairing the damages that have been done. All right, we're talking about the supersonic air knife now and its many uses and benefits. Great piece of equipment. I actually think they're a lot of fun to use. In arboriculture, we use them a lot for root crown excavations, plants that were buried too deep, trying to find girdle roots. This tree itself on the back has a little bit of damage to the lower trunk, so we could kind of poke down, see how deep that damage goes, see if there's any structural root damage. We can use them for radial trenching for soil invigoration on older trees in urban environments or when things are compacted, to just easily amend soil, get organic matter back in there, and then just, let nature start taking its course. Another great opportunity for radial trenching is, when we plant trees in soils that just don't drain very well, we try to plant them a little higher, dig a little bigger of a root ball, but again, if we do radial trenches coming out of that planted area, out into the native soils, it's going to drain a lot better. So you'll have a lot better results in poor draining soils doing that radial trenching also right out of the time of beginning. As far as landscape construction goes, it's also a great beneficial piece of equipment. If we're installing an irrigation system in an existing plant bed, which is often the case, people put in their landscape and then they're like, they get a little further down the line, they're like, man, I wish I didn't have to water this thing all the time, and they go with the irrigation. But we can't just take a vibratory plow or something like that and just drag irrigation pipe through existing beds. With the use of a supersonic air knife, you can dig that trench out just using the compressed air and then slide that pipe under the roots without doing any damage. Bare root transplanting is another place that I really like to use this piece of equipment. It's really taken hold in the industry as a good way to move plants around a property. When we do a traditional balled and burlap dig a tree, we take a tree this size and we might have, try to get a 4-foot root ball on that, maybe 2 feet deep, and that's going to weigh thousands of pounds to try to move a 4-inch diameter tree. In a bare root scenario, not only are we going to maintain all that fibrous root that we'd be losing in a balled and burlap plant, which can be up to 80% in a traditional dug and move tree, we're going to be able to retain all that root mass, lessen the transplant shock, so that tree will establish much quicker, and we can actually transplant through much more of the growing season because we're not cutting that root mass and disrupting that. Even if the tree's in full leaf later on in the year, we can still move that tree effectively. And we're also doing it with a lot lighter equipment, so if you're in a backyard or a smaller area, you don't have to worry about getting that heavy tractor in there that's also expensive, and we may not have it. So, again, we can take this, and then again, we're taking this plant and moving it with 90% less weight and 90% more root. So again, extremely beneficial. All right, the supersonic air knife is a very impressive and simple machine, really. Well designed, ergonomically correct. So this is going to have air coming out the nozzle at Mach 1.7, which is kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. It's enough to fracture a good compacted soil, get it out of the way, loosen things up, but it's not enough to damage the roots of the tree. So it's right at that perfect balance of being able to deal with the soil and the fine particles. It kind of finds one flaw and just exploits that and gets that dirt out of there, but the roots hold together very well. As far as the design of it goes, we've made a couple improvements in the last year on it. We've made the grip a little more ergonomically efficient. We've changed the adjustable handle to be easier to adjust. And again, this handle here, we scanned a bunch of hands with our 3D scanning equipment and found a nice balance of what fits most people. And again, with the trigger being on top, it's more of an intuitive design in that when you push down on the trigger, the supersonic air knife is going to push back at you, and it's a lot less stress on your hand because it kind of just helps keep itself on. You're pushing into the work, it's keeping the trigger going rather than a gas pump style trigger which might be pulling up on something that's pushing, and it's a lot more work on your shoulders. So it's a great ergonomic design. We've made the gauge extremely easy to see for the pressure on the equipment. So again, simple to use, easy to use, and comfortable to use. The supersonic air knife vacuum is a great addition to your soil excavation equipment. It's an extremely efficient way to get the dirt out of the way once you've loosened it up with the supersonic air knife. A lot of times when we're doing soil excavation, you're trying to go down further than a couple inches. So with the supersonic air knife, we can fracture that soil down 8 or 10 inches at a time and then switch to the vacuum and pull that dirt out, again, without injuring the tree. Trying to remove that soil after you loosen it with a shovel just defeats the purpose of the low impact. So it's a great addition to your arsenal. It's, again, the same ergonomic design as the supersonic air knife, all the benefits of an easy-to-use trigger, adjustable handle, and really just an efficient tool to get that dirt out of there. And, we've got a pretty fancy dirt collection system for it also that we'll show you in a little bit. As you can see with the supersonic air knife and vacuum, it really opens up your plant healthcare business with a whole bunch of opportunities. And we've known for a long time that there's a lot of problems above ground, but a lot of them originate below ground. So being able to get down there unintrusively and see what's going on with the tree's, root crown, lateral roots, and other ways without disrupting. You can see we removed all the soil with the vacuum and the air knife without, disrupting that small root. So now we can work in soil amendments. We've got better drainage on this tree. We could cut any girdling roots. And then in our dirt, we've got that collected in the bag. We've got that in a nice confined way, so it's a safe and efficient way to get the process done. We can get it right back in the site there. The tree will be happy, we're happy, and the customer's happy.
I hope you enjoyed the tour of our facilities and some of our innovative products and technologies. At Arborjet Ecology, we're proud of the tools and formulations we've developed to help save labor costs and protect trees. Whether you want to broaden your PHC offering, add tools to improve your efficiency, or reduce the stress on client trees, we have great solutions for you.